Of this bhajan in I think it's Narottam Das Thakur's Prema Chandrika book. Got the full name of the book. You can find that description there and learn more about that bhajan in that book. It's a very nice description of how he describes that. I think it's Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Yes, that's it. Prema Bhakti Chandrika book. Find it online and you can learn about this bhajan. It's such a nice bhajan. How he depicts this bhajan in so many nice ways. Next week. Most of you are coming for some time. Next we will always chant the invocation prayers or the Mangalacharyam. Anything which is to invocate or bring auspiciousness. These are prayers that have been correlated from different Shastras and Upanishads to give us the right understanding of what mood we should abide, one as a speaker and one as the listener. And understand where all that information is coming from. So it starts off with understanding that the Guru has given us the understanding. Secondly, who we're following is Rupa Goswami. Who understands Krishna, who understands Radha, the Vaishnavas, and lastly, Panchtattva or Nitya Gauranga on the altar, and also the devotees. So we are, everything encompassed within this Mangalacharya prayer is giving us understanding that what mood we should imbibe present today to really listen and take as much knowledge away from this session today as possible. So if you know the Mangalacharya prayers, please join me in them prayers. And if you don't, then maybe like most devotees say, you can just meditate on the sound vibration. Om Gyantimirandasya Jnananjala Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Prananami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpa Jarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Aditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, thank you everyone for joining today. I think I just want to correct Radha Ram Prabhu slightly. I think these days I'm a bit like Jana Bharata and just going down the ocean in Brighton Beach and just looking at different things instead of practicing Krishna consciousness properly, so I'm trying my best, but thank you for the nice introduction. So, everyone can see? Okay. Everyone can see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Radha Ram Prabhu asked me, he said to me, he goes, what subject do you want to speak on? And I just thought of the next big few things coming up in our calendar in ISKCON Crawley, which is next week going to be our Prabhupada celebration, which is, for me, unfortunately I won't be able to make it because I have naturally husband duties to carry out, but if I was going to be, probably one of the most important festivals after Janmashtami for us in Crawley. And that is appreciation of Srila Prabhupada and what he's given us. So, and then naturally from that comes the month of Kartik, or where we carry out something called the Urja Vrat, or Vrat to make us closer to Krishna and make that effort towards him. So these two things are kind of really important of me understanding today's subject matter. And Radha Ram Prabhu is correct. I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for some years now in this life, and it's been an interesting experience to say the least. At sometimes it seems easy, and at sometimes it seems hard. Who here sometimes feel Krishna conscious can feel hard? Okay, good. I'm not alone here then. It's good to know. And that's the reason why I thought, let's update our relationship status with Krishna. Let's try and find the most easiest means through the area we're in Bhakti Yoga Center. What we can do within our power, within the means that we have, to come closer to Krishna in a more practical way. I spoke about last time I spoke, I sat here. I think I spoke maybe like a year and a half ago or something like that. It must have been a while. I think I spoke about the 9 processes of devotional service mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto. And these 9 processes of devotional service are simple on the mirror face. They look simple, but they actually could be difficult to carry out. And then one can then question, how does one seem to carry these processes out in day-to-day life, in modern-day Bhakti Yoga Center? And so I've kind of put together a few slides to give us all a journey into Krishna consciousness through the stage of where we become like Nityananda Mahaprabhu right at the back over there, and he's just in full ecstasy, enjoying the love of God and sharing it with everybody in the most perfect way. Firstly, I'd like to ask everyone's blessing within the audience today that I'm able to speak something of value, something that you can take away, something that you can hopefully use in your bhakti, and then naturally you can then impart something onto me as well, because I need the help as well. So thank you, and I really hope today's session is of use to you. So I mentioned something about struggle, and a lot of people put their hand up. Not everybody, but most of us put their hand up here and said Krishna consciousness can be a struggle sometimes, because we're, as Prabhupada mentioned, swimming upstream, where everything in the material world is swimming downstream, taking us in the other direction. And then naturally a verse comes to mind, and it's quite like for ones that have done Bhakti Shastri or studied the Prabhupada literature to some degree, will know that this verse is quite important. It's from the 15th chapter, verse 7, where it goes, Mamavam sa jiva loka, jiva bhuta sanatana, mana sastani indrani, praktistani karshati. And what Krishna is trying to say here is that the living entities, this is in this conditioned world, are my eternal fragmental parts. He's explaining to us that we're all parts and parcel of it, as we already know. But due to Krishna, they're struggling very hard with the 6 senses, including the mind. Prabhupada mentions in the purport of that verse, and I highlight this small point, that karshati, or the struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up, and those shackles are by irons, he's bound up by the false ego, and the mind is a chief agent, which is driving him in this material existence. So the mind is saying that the mind is guiding us so many directions, and if you read the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it explains how one can then settle the mind and bring the mind under control. And the short term is that by regulated practice and regulated material practice also. Both of them need to be coinciding for the mind to become steady. And I was thinking that the mind could be such a sort of amazing feature where the way it speaks to us and the way we speak to ourselves can be so important. And a lot of people relate that us beings in this world are considered to be in prison. This world is considered a prison. And just saying that feels like, it's almost kind of demoralizing in one sense. Why am I in prison? What have I done wrong? Why am I then being imprisonated? But Keshav Maharaj actually in a Melbourne lecture, he really describes this really nicely. And he says, yeah, we are in prison, but we're the prisoner and also we're the prison guard. So we have the power to take ourselves out of this position. And Krishna has given us that power. Prabhupada shares a really nice story in a recording of Prabhupada. He mentions, I think it's a morning walk, where someone comes up to Prabhupada, and some of you may know this story, it's quite a famous one. Someone comes to Prabhupada and Prabhupada, I feel like sometimes I'm in Maya, or Maya is considered material energy, and I'm more consumed in that, and then sometimes I'm in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada corrected him and said, actually sometimes you're in Krishna consciousness and most of the time you're in Maya. So our position is to understand that when we're in that position of thinking about material designations and not really thinking about Krishna or dovetailing our activities towards Krishna, that is when we're in that material designation. And that, for most of us, if we're true to ourselves, including myself, is the case most of the time. But I'm not speaking for everybody. Then Prabhupada goes on to mention that the human form of life is meant for re-establishing our relationship with God and acting according to that relationship. Even in ordinary dealings, one businessman who intends to do business with another must first establish some relationship, and then transactions can take place. Similarly, a husband and a wife establish a relationship by marriage, and then they live together. Not in my case, but yeah, I guess it's similar for most people. In a similar way, human life is meant for re-establishing our relationship with God. The material world means forgetfulness of this relationship. And this derives from a really nice book called The Teachings of Queen Kunti. And her premise of that book is very much that she wants to be in a state of not feeling satisfied within this world. Constant wanting to have Krishna as a desire to satisfy desire, and then naturally she feels that she's always remembering Krishna. Ultimately, it's a higher stage to be like that, but Prabhupada is then given the right understanding that one should understand that this is also the case, that we should always try to establish a relationship with Krishna. And the reason why I start with this is that after some time of practicing Krishna consciousness, it can become a second nature, and we just do things because it could be culture, people around us are doing the same thing. We're doing it because it feels right. We're doing it because it's what we see on social media now. And social media has a major part to play in that, because every devotee now has pretty much gone to social media to preach Krishna consciousness. But a very important point to note is, and it's, within this I'll say sacred crowd today, because I feel like everyone here is taking the time to listen to me, so I feel like you're a sacred crowd. I feel like even me, I've made this mistake of doing this in time. Prabhupada mentions in the Nectar of Devotion, it's a very, very, very good point. One should not artificially try to establish some relationship with Krishna. The result of this is that one becomes a prakrita sahajya, or one who takes everything very cheaply in Krishna consciousness. You can easily take things Krishna conscious cheaply because it comes so easily to you. All such persons may be very anxious to establish a relationship with Krishna. And no one should claim that he has an eternal relationship with Krishna unless the one is practicing properly or adhering to the practices with due diligence. So it's recommended that this due diligence is needed, and this is what I spoke about in the beginning of the 9 processes of devotional service. So how does one kind of attain that? Where does one start? Where does one start? And for me, again, like I said, if you studied the Prabhupada literatures and you've done some systematic study of Prabhupada literatures, you see that one of the verses that comes to mind is the 14th chapter, verse 26, where Krishna is saying that one who engages in full devotion, unfailing in all circumstances, very important, unfailing in all circumstances, are ones transcends the mode of material and thus comes to the level of Brahman. What's the level of Brahman? What's the level of Brahman? Actually, if you go on to read the Bhagavad Gita, the level of Brahman means that one has no material designations, both sensually, like through the body, both mentally, and then naturally he's completely aloof from the material creation. And all he has desire for is spiritual association or spiritual activities. Now that can seem hard to attain for some people, but if one is equipoised in something called happiness and distress, and this is another verse, but I won't say it because he's classed as a true yogi. And Prabhupada mentions this in the 6th chapter of that as who is a true yogi, who's always thinking of him and abides in him and never lets him go. One is a true yogi. And so that it will lead me on to the next few sessions and how we speak about this. And sit with this premise for the next few slides when I talk about this. Rupa Goswami, who I said we are following, and I mentioned in our Mangalacharya prayers, Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. He knows Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. He's then imparted that onto us. He says in his Bhakti Rasa Vidasudha, or Nectar of Devotion, Anya Bilasita Sunyam Gyani Karmadi Anmitam Anukulyano Krishna Nusilam Bhakti Uttama. So the highest form of bhakti, one should render devotional service to the Lord favorably, without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. The three things to understand there is that should be favorable, should be without any premise of feeling like I want something in return from this, and philosophical speculation, that everything we read and understand comes from the Shastras and through right understanding. So I mentioned a few things here. One is that it's a hard struggle in Krishna consciousness, that we have to understand that most of the time we can be in the material creation, and also that one should not take this Krishna conscious process cheaply, because if you take it cheaply, the results can be not as what we desired, and we become in a struggling state. So we always take this in the state of like, actually, I'm serious about this. Whatever I do in Krishna consciousness would be in a serious mood. It doesn't have to be that one has to be engaged. If one cannot be engaged 24 hours a day, but if you are engaged even 1 hour a day, that should be the 1 hour focus that you engage in. And like I said, I've made this mistake in the past. And then naturally I'll lead on to something where he's saying, what is bhakti? Bhakti is constant, without motivation of anything in return. And the mind is fully absorbed in that. So it leads me on to the next slide, where I speak about this thing called trust the process. And for a lot of us in the beginning, it could be an up and down situation. Like you may, doubt is natural. For most of us, doubt is natural. Doubt is the natural tendency within most people. You come into something, you may like it in the beginning, but over time you're like, this is really what it is. I haven't had a great interaction with this person. That person didn't speak to me properly. I didn't get the service I wanted. The prasadam wasn't great. Something could come and there could arise some doubt, and then that could spark a doubt within most of us. So this is why I come up with the process of trust the process. The process is laid out for us, we should trust the process. And Prabhupada says this in a letter to one of his disciples, because the process of Krishna consciousness is very simple. Everything belongs to Krishna, so our duty is to give everything for Krishna's service and chant Hare Krishna. And he says that, why is he giving this simple analogy of this? Is because it is simple. We should take everything as Christian service, whether it be the service that we're given, Prashadam that's on our plate, to who we speak to where we go, our family members, our friends, everything is a service of Krishna, and that should be in the mood. That saying that and doing those two things can be very difficult, because naturally, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is that Prabhupada is mentioning that we're conditioned souls, we're going through different stages of life, and we're conditioned. But hopefully by the end of this session, we can find practical means to then move forward and see that, I can move forward and be more fixed in my service, more fixed in my practice, and think of Krishna more. And ultimately, that is the end. So, as you can see in the picture here, this person here, or this devotee, what is he doing? He or she is listening. They're listening. So that's the first thing that one person does. And throughout these slides, I'll depict certain characters from the Bhakti history, or most likely the Bhagavatam or Bhakti text or our acharyas, that depict this and give us examples of this. Because for most of us, we need examples. We need examples of people or individuals that have practiced certain characteristics within Bhakti and that can achieve the desired process. And Maharaj Parikshit was one of these personalities. Actually, he's considered the hero of Srimad Bhagavatam because he heard so perfectly that even his questions were perfect. Now, we know most of us is that the natural term is that the book was Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers by Prabhupada's conversation. The reason why it's called that is because to ask perfect questions, one has to perfectly listen, properly listen. It's important to do that. I know for myself that sometimes I find it hard to listen, but over time, I know what works for me and what practical things work for me to listen effectively. Now, some people here, I know that individuals have sat in class with people and they can sit in class for 1.5 hours and listen intently and be completely absorbed, or some people after about 40 minutes or half an hour, their mind just doesn't register. It goes in a different direction. So you have to find what works for you in the hearing process. And even if it makes making notes, writing something down, conversating about it with somebody. So this is also part of the hearing process, is very important, because everything we hear in Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada has repeated it 1,001 times in everything, really. The Bhagavad Gita has repeated the same thing. In his smaller books, he repeat the same thing. But actually, he's not going in on because we're not perfectly listening. So that is the premise of everything, is to listen effectively and try and find a favourable motion to listen in the right way. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually has also stressed this point in Madhya Lila. It's also a book called Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the reason why I depict this verse is because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his Madhya Lila, he goes on to speak about so many activities, and most of his in that version of that section of that volume of books, he's doing a lot of his activities where he's speaking to a lot of individuals, going around different parts of India and speaking and preaching. So he actually mentions that he's favourably stressed the importance of process hearing. According to his method, if simply given a chance to hear about Krishna, certainly they will gradually develop the dormant awareness or love of God. So that is quite a heavy verse and quite an important verse. So that even through the effective hearing process, this is so important. Now, one thing that I can probably over time that I think is really, really important to listen to. I mentioned social media, and those devotees that go on social media and they're preaching on social media to reach out to a wider audience. And it's also very important, and it works in many regards. But it's important to use these tools that we have around us, modern day tools, at an effective point. We were on a walk with, I think recently we were at Rath Yatra yesterday, and we were on a walk with Golokananda Maharaj, who's a disciple of Prabhupada. And he was speaking that we're going for like a forest walk. And I'm quite a foresty person, so when I'm in a forest or green area, I naturally feel calm, and I naturally feel like I just feel like present. But he was saying that actually in modern day society, so many distractions, we're hit by so many things at some point, it just makes our attention span so small. And I guess TikTok's an example of that, of most days. People only let attention span last for like 15 seconds. And so it's really important to disconnect if you can. And I know there's a method mentioned by many devotees. You disconnect for 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, 1 week in a month. and then 1 month in a year. If you can do that method, of course, it's very effective. But if we can disconnect daily from the space that we're in and move in a more favorable space where we just feel connected without any mobile phones in our pocket, it also helps with the hearing process. Like most of us say the phone is the extension of ourselves. So now for most of us, when I talk about listening or hearing from somebody, we naturally, for most of us, we want to listen from somebody who is an authorized guru or authorized person. And in ISKCON, we have many of them who are leading the way and they're following the path, and they're naturally authorized in their own right. And Krishna is also giving that example in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Most of you may know the verse. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashena sevaya upadakshante janam jnanas tattvadarshana. I'll just quickly hold that moment for a minute because I know this verse very well. And Sutta Goswami, who's a very elevated personality in the Srimad Bhagavatam, has mentioned quite clearly, by reciting Vedic texts, you not just imbibe the meaning of the text, but you imbibe the feeling, and it also brings out auspiciousness of these texts, especially texts that are spoken directly by Krishna or God himself. So I make a conscious effort to recite these texts so they can ensue some feeling within the audience today. And so what that means is that just try and learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master, inquire from them submissively and render service unto them. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Now, that's a very plain process. You approach them, you inquire from them in the right way. You then naturally give, okay, thank you for giving me what you've given me. What can I do for you in return? And then they'll then say, no, I'm giving you as knowledge as I want to. You know, you've asked me and you've also offered service. I'm giving you as knowledge. Actually, within ISKCON Crawley, and this is talking about our normal frame here, we have gurus come and visit. We don't have a guru that's constantly there that we can speak to and constantly engaging. But within our society, we have many people that are classed as Vaishnavas or devotees that are practicing. And Srila Sanatana Goswami, who's on the altar there with the 6 Goswamis, bottom right corner, and I think Shyam Govindapur went through a class where he explained who's who from from person to person, starting from the far left to the far right? And that's quite good because not anywhere you see that. It's not hard to find that picture image. He mentions that you can approach somebody who's at least person who's trying to become a Vaishnava by following the regulative principles and also chanting Hare Krishna daily. And that's their qualification. So we also can hear from people that are trying to be Vaishnavas because they're ultimately trying to impart knowledge. And I'll speak about more on this as the slides go on so you can get more of a real understanding of how this works. And Prabhupada says actually the importance of this is that unless one hears about the holy name, form and qualities of Lord, one cannot clearly understand other processes of devotional service. It's so important to hear about Krishna, but in the right way from the right person. Now we had, I forget Prabhu's name, he comes from India, Braj, he's a very famous speaker on the Bhagavatam. Do you remember his name? I picked him up from the airport. Do you remember his name? Not Brajabihari Prabhu.
Brajavilas Prabhu.
Do you remember his name? Braj Sundar Prabhu. And he, in that class, and you can find most of ISKCON Crawley's classes, I think now they're on Facebook, and then obviously now they've recently moved to YouTube. They gave a really nice class on the Bhagavatam and the importance to hear about Krishna and the form of the pastimes from the right person, because they're speaking without in any motive. And so it's also very important. Prabhupada is stressing that point also, that we should also hear anything from someone without any motive in return. So what are the effects of listening from the right person? One then, Prabhupada mentions in a purple of Nectar Devotion again, that goes, faith in Krishna is divided into 3 stages. One gains faith. First class faith, second class, and third class. And through these faiths, one can then develop the devotional service practice accordingly. And Maharaj Parikshit trusted this process, and he heard from the highest authority, who most of us know as Sukadeva Goswami. Now, Maharaj Parikshit's story is quite a peculiar one because he was quite a righteous person. He did really good things, and he's depicted in the Bible with them as like a very good king. Really looked out for his people, and he does really good activities. He's very righteous and religious, but unnecessarily he got cursed, and he accepted that curse. Now, if you look at that, Prabhupada mentioned in a practice of that, in a lecture for that verse, when he mentions he got cursed. Now we should take that as an opinion or as a mirror of what position we're in. A lot of us are in a position, I'll put our hand up, a lot of us in a position of struggle, and we're going through life. It's very difficult, and things can change for us at any moment. So Mahaprabhu in that stage took up the process of, no, I'm not going to let this affect me. I'm going to now move forward and take to Krishna consciousness. And that's the true position of what a yogi or devotee should be, in any case, any matter. And then naturally, Prabhupada speaks about this in a very nice verse in the 14th chapter. And he speaks in a purple, and he goes, those who are actually serious about human life should take to this good association and transcend the modes and become situated in Krishna consciousness. So he's also even given the importance of practicing Krishna consciousness in good association. So that leads on to that. I've explained to you that in the previous slide that we're all going through this struggle. We know what the pure devotional service is, what that means. It has to be continuous, unmotivated. We then are given the understanding that we should trust the process. By trusting the process from the right authority, we can get the right result. Naturally, what happens now? You then want to seek out something called an alliance. What I try to call build an alliance, or build a group of people where you can share this with. And this is what I like to say, where you become a little bit of a, this is what Prabhupada mentioned in Queen Kunti's verse. You start becoming a businessman or businessman in spirituality. You start interacting with people in spiritual practices. And Prabhupada tried to do the same actually. He built a league of devotees before ISKCON was even found. And he had a vision that to invoke the goodness in particular of people. And how does that happen? That every member of that alliance or that group is practicing Krishna consciously with so many qualities such as truthfulness, forgiveness, equality, tolerance, education, purity, and faith in the transcendental service of the Lord. Now, all these qualities they're mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, but they can seem a little bit overwhelming. Now, you may look at some of the qualities and think like, I'm associated with these people, but I don't have any of these qualities, or I don't possess all them qualities. But for most of us, those qualities can be imbibed in very simple ways, and that is with the four regulative principles. So most of us here all know the four regulative principles given by Srila Prabhupada. Everyone knows, so who doesn't know? Everyone knows. Good. So, but then these four regulative principles, one is meat eating. Now, meat eating is the given instruction, but within that, there's so many subtle things that comes with. So meat eating is non-violence, not knowing where your food comes from, being conscious of how we're eating, not giving any harm to any other living entities. So many subtle things come between that, and through that you imbibe these certain qualities, such as non-violence. Naturally, same thing is gambling, no gambling. Gambling means not to cheat, essentially. You're not cheating, firstly, you're not cheating yourself. You're being true to yourself and where you're at in the process, but you're also not cheating others. That's the subtle factor of what we mean to no gamble. You don't cheat others. Prabhupada is being quite, and we know Prabhupada as a Paramahamsa, who's someone who's transcendental and he's given everything in a very condensed way. And this is the beauty of Prabhupada's literature, is that actually he has taken all the Vedas and comprised them in a short space of books for us to read. So if everyone read Prabhupada's books, you imbibe all the qualities of the Vedas as described by Prabhupada. Secondly would be no illicit sex. What does that mean? That one doesn't then over engross the body in activities which are unnecessary. And through a split-second moment, one is then fixed in that moment and knowing what he wants. So that desire then has subtle factors towards it. And what's the last one?
Intoxication.
No intoxication. So intoxication means not to harm the body, essentially taking things which are not good for you. Eating in a pure state. Now a lot of Prabhupada, if you know Prabhupada followed the ISKCON movement for some time, he established many farm communities in the early stages. But even now, we live in modern day society, we can adapt that. There's loads of ways where we can eat organic food, and make sure where our food comes from. I know a lot of devotees here, Shusha Mataji here grows some of her own vegetables as well in her house and cooks with them and offers them to Krishna. So it is possible. Devotees are able to carry that and go out and put some things in the ground in their back garden or in a... I know one devotee from Brighton, because I go to Brighton quite a bit now, and she has an allotment where she grows loads of vegetables, huge amount of vegetables, and she cooks with only them vegetables that she grows. And so it is possible in modern day society if you want to do that. And with that alliance of devotees, when you're practicing the four oriental principles together, you can think of these things together and help each other in that process. And that is the whole point of building an alliance. What does alliance do for you? They compensate, they think about each other's wellness, and they want to help each other essentially. So, the other thing is that when we build an alliance, we want to know that the devotees that we're speaking to, or the devotees that we're spending time with, they're also practicing in the right way. And how can we recognize that? It's very important. Because ultimately, everyone is coming to Krishna consciousness for some reason. Krishna is also saying in the Bhagavad Gita, 4 types of people come to me for different reasons. They have different motivations to come to me. But are they then sincere in their practice? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who's the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that all good qualities become manifest in the Vaishnava, that is only present good quality. One can distinguish who's a Vaishnava is one is practicing with sincerity and dedication. So that's also very important. Is they're practicing with sincerity. Actually, the only way you can see if someone is sincere in their practice and you should associate with them is that they're sincere in what they do. They're following the process Srila Prabhupada has mentioned. Is they're getting up early in the morning and chanting their japa. They're reading literature every day. They're conversating. They're listening to class. They're offering their food. They're doing these things which are important for them. And these are the right people that we should try to associate with to give us the best alliance we can have. And so, Prabhupada mentions again that Arjuna and Krishna were best of friends. And only till when Arjuna understood that he was going through a tough time, that Arjuna then he says, Shishya Steham. He's like, I've now come to you're my disciple, I'm your disciple. Please instruct me. And so, it's important to understand that in modern day, we have to also take advice from people. We don't know everything. And that's why the alliance is there. So we build alliance with devotees, that we have a sangha here. We also have, by many devotees, grace that we have many sanghas going on throughout the week. These are also small alliances that are building, they're studying Krishna consciousness, they engage each other, they're talking about how we can adapt this in our day-to-day lives. These people are here that they want to help you. And so they're imbibing some major good qualities within us. And an example of this, I mentioned the previous example, but this example of this is the sages of Naimisharanya. And the reason why the sages of Naimisharanya, actually the sages there were all different sages. They're all not all bhakti yogis. They're all from different aspects of yoga. Some of them were, jnana yogis, some of them were from the eightfold yoga system, but they're all yogis. And the one thing that they had in common, and it's something to bear in mind, one thing they had in common is that they wanted to do good in the world. They wanted to do good to others, good to themselves, and within them, and then good to others. And I think in a practical way, that's a right alliance to be in. If you spend time with devotees and you feel like this is doing good for me and I'm naturally wanting to do good for others, you're in the right atmosphere. And then Prabhupada, lastly I would say on this is that what is the one aspect of when you come out of alliance, how do you feel? Of a spiritual sangha, how do you feel? Essentially it's called a sangha, how do you feel? You should feel one thing. You should feel inspired to serve. That's the only thing that should come from that. When you spend time with devotees and you're discussing spiritual matters, you're discussing how you can apply Krishna consciousness in your life. You're then saying, I now want to serve. I'm now ready to give myself in service in whatever aspect. So that is a natural inclination of spending time with devotees. And that can be service within your house, within your family, making your home life better, making it more spiritual, going out serving. Like Shyam Govinda probably mentioned that if you come here twice, you're not a guest anymore. You can now offer service here. The toilets need cleaning, the kitchen needs cleaning, so many things need doing. So naturally you can then offer yourselves in these respects in more practical ways and offer yourself in service. And that's the symptom of being in a good group or good alliance. I want to put a question out there to everybody actually, because most of us on social media. Who's not on social media? You're not on social media. Okay, very rare breed. Good. That's good. But those of you who are on social media, you may see that there's many types of devotees that are attracted to Krishna now, not just ISKCON devotees. And what the question I wanted to feel out there, and just let me know what you're feeling, is that how have you felt that you have felt close to Prabhupada's ISKCON over time? Because Prabhupada is not here, but we still honor Prabhupada as he's the Acharya Guru of ISKCON. How does everyone feel that? How they felt in ISKCON? Do they feel like they feel like they're home in ISKCON? They feel like wherever they go in the world, they've got a home to go to. They've got devotees to meet. Who feels like that? Most people. So this is what we have. Prabhupada has built our lives in the most perfect way for us. Like wherever we go in the world, it could be anywhere. Even within the UK, like you can travel 30 miles and be at another centre or be at another temple. So this is the beauty of building alliance of devotees, that one thing happened, that you can build a temple, you can build a place of worship, but also facilitate, very important thing is for other people to come in. Other people to then take the opportunity to come into that group. And that's the most important thing. You then want to serve and bring other people in. So the next thing is that you trust the process. You trusted the process, you followed the process, you then built a Sangha, you now inspired the Sangha, you're serving. What is the next thing? Now the practical thing is then to become, what I like to call is become a general, like a bit of a military term really, but it's become a general in your own right, to lead the way, like to lead some service. Now many devotees here in Bhakti Yoga Center are doing many great services on a weekly basis, daily basis. You know, many devotees look after the center, the well-being of the center itself, the cleaning, the deities. This is something else as well. There's many devotees looking over so many aspects of that, and they're naturally a general in their own right because they're leading in the way in that service. And that is a natural tendency. Once you have that Sangha, that appreciation for Krishna consciousness, and you follow the process, you then want to then lead the way. And this is then following, again, remember this is a 9 process of devotional service. This is what's happening. Now you're then taking the aspect of now actively doing something, which is continuous. It's from that verse I mentioned of Bhakti Rasa Pita Sindhu. It's continuous now. It's becoming continuous. Maybe I'm not speaking, so goodness, I'm not liking it. So, I think I listened to a few things, and I think this is something really important, and I think it's really nice. Most of us here are from an Indian culture. I don't think anyone here is not from an Indian culture. Most people here are from an Indian culture. Adika's from the best culture. But it's a culture nonetheless. And Chaitanya Chariprabhu said a really nice, he says that he speaks very nice. If none of you know who Chaitanya Chariprabhu is, he's known as the spiritual scientist, where he really dissects some amazing spiritual knowledge and really makes it easy and digestible to understand. And he puts bhakti in a very easy way. He goes, we should try and move bhakti from cultural bhakti to conscious bhakti. And what he means that in relation to Krishna, what he means by that is that we should understand the culture we're in. So use the culture around us to then intentionally move forward in bhakti. Understand the tradition of bhakti and use that as an aspect to move forward. Understand the mood of bhakti for one of the devotees and move forward. And then understand the logic behind why we're doing what we're doing. So these 4 things are so important. He mentions at the end of that lecture. Really good lecture. You can find it. I think it's called Relationships. You can find it on YouTube or even on his website. So you can find it there. Really, really nice lecture. And he speaks much better than me, so you'll find it enjoyable listening to him. So what he means by that is that everything should be done with some intention in bhakti. And becoming a general doesn't just mean you take up the service for the sake of taking up a service. It should be done with some intention, knowing why you're doing it, the significance behind it, and what the purpose is, and what benefit it's having on you. And the reason why that is, the next slide will show that, is when you do that, that will naturally have effects in you as an individual and what you're doing in your bhakti and how you represent yourself. So, Prabhupada is saying something really important. True knowledge is knowing how to act. And that's what true knowledge means. So when you've acquired this true knowledge through trusting the process, building a Sangha group or building an alliance, you then know how to act. And then when you take on these services that devotees are doing in the Bhakti Yoga Center, which by ways is unlimited service you can do. If one is then attracted to Krishna, one could bring up any service they like in Krishna service. And again, for me, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was one of these people. And for one, you don't know him, he's there. Second person on the right, next to Prabhupada, is Prabhupada's guru, direct guru. And for ones that haven't heard anything about him, you can listen to more about Prabhupada, speak about him on his appearance and disappearance days, lectures. Really, really beautiful lectures about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and how he feels about him and the mood that he has on him. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was also a general in his own right. He took many things in service of Krishna. He was quite innovative. Now, I mentioned before, a lot of Bhakti Yoga Sangha lectures were based on Facebook, so you can go back a few years and listen to Nimai Chandra Prabhu's lecture on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He gave a really nice lecture on that. And he spoke about some of the practical things that Maharaj done, like the most innovative things he done. Like you heard of Madam Two Swords. Madam Two Swords, he was the first one. He invented like these moving figures of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in that age over 100 years ago. He was so innovative. He tried everything. He may not have succeeded in all those things, but he keep trying. And that's the process of becoming a general. You keep trying. You keep processing, you keep persevering. So some of the qualities that he imbibed was that he was warrior-like in his qualities and actions. Like he didn't find anything to stop him. He would keep going. And he would always tell the truth. Now, this is one of the aspects of when you follow the regulative principles, truthfulness will naturally prevail within us. But he was unwaveringly truthful, always truthful in any circumstance. He was fearful in his expansion. An example of that is how he saw many devotees from many sects come who knew Krishna. Like I mentioned to you guys, in social media now, you see many devotees come from different areas and talk about Krishna in different ways and attracted to Krishna in so many different ways. That Krishna is God. He's unlimited, so in unlimited ways we can understand Krishna. But he was so expert that he brought all those people together and brought them in a systematic way. So he knew that was one of the services he could do. And also, such an amazing thing that as a devotee, practicing devotee, I think it was just so amazing that within a decade, he achieved chanting Maha Mantra 1 billion times. 1 billion names of Krishna he chanted in 12 years, less than 12 years. He took a dedication to do that. Now, I can't even work. What's that? How many days a day? I don't know. 1 billion divide that within 12 years. You might need a calculator for that or something. But it was just incredible the kind of dedication he had, not just to his practice, which is then he trusted the process and took the practice seriously, not just to his actions of becoming forward and being a general in his own right. And secondly, he was innovative in his way of doing things. Now, the Bhakti Yoga Center here is such an amazing place that it gives us the opportunity to do so many things. We're not restricted. If we have a service that we want to do for Krishna, this is that platform that we can do it on. And I've just realized I spoke for 41 minutes. And I'm not even nowhere near the end, so I'm going to speed up. The next one is lead the way. And this is what I spoke about. When you become a general and you follow this process, what happens? You lead the way for others to come follow you. And you lead him by almost example. So when you're then following the process, you're building a Sangha around you, and then what happens is then you then inspire to do some regular service for Krishna. You then develop these qualities, and everyone sees that, you are then following in the right way. They naturally want to ask questions. Oh, you're doing this, such an amazing service. How do I get involved? You lead the way for others. Leading the way to others to serve Krishna also. And this is an important point because in the process of bhakti, if we engage others in bhakti, Krishna also becomes pleased. Krishna also becomes happy. Krishna also wants to then give you more opportunities to serve. And that is the secret to success in Krishna consciousness in most cases. That we engage others in Krishna service, it becomes more happy. And if anyone does that, naturally Krishna will become happy. But we have to do it in the right way. It's important to do it in the right way. Prabhupada says to lead the way in the movement, one should embody the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and act as a guru. serving as a guide to others and path of devotional service. This involves becoming a representative of the Acharya by performing actions such as philosophical understanding without adulteration, and thereby fulfilling the duty of Krishna and the disciplic succession. So we should follow what the previous acharyas have done. We should understand that we have don't have to make anything up. Everything is written for us in the books. We can follow that, and naturally, other people will see that we're following in the right way, and then they'll take that example forward. I think for most of us, a prime example of that will be Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's we know as Krishna and Radha together, and Prabhupada, I think not just Prabhupada speaks about this. I read a book on a poem of Prabhupada actually. It's about poems about Prabhupada, written by one of his disciples. And he writes that, it's such a nice, beautiful way of saying it, is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha looking for Krishna and Krishna looking for Radha. And it's just a nice way of depicting it because it's just a form of devotee. They're both trying to devote each other. And naturally from that representation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared and showed us the way. So he's a prime example for us of how even the Lord himself has showed us how to become a devotee. And he's teaching that way. And so, the natural thing is that many devotees over my time, they've said that after some time being in Krishna consciousness, you should something called carry the baton. And when they said that to me, I always thought of Hanuman's Gada. And that's why I put Hanuman up there. I thought Hanuman's got his Gada, he just lead the way for everybody else. And then I was in a Sangha during lockdown where we were reading the Mahabharata, going through the Mahabharata. And I'd never read the Mahabharata before that. And there was a pastime where Hanuman was like, oh, I'm just fed up, this is taking too long to rescue Sita, let me go and get her myself. So he goes himself to go and rescue her. Obviously fights and kills all these demons. And in the end, Sita's like, no, I'm not leaving with you, I want Ram to come. But what that means is that we can lead the way, and we may make mistakes. It's important to understand that the mistakes can happen. We may not, or the desired result may not come for us. But that should not dishearten us what we're doing. And that's important to know also. We should still stay inspired. Rupa Goswami said, Utsahanishtaraya tatta karma pravartana. One should stay enthusiastic in practice through knowledge, through the right knowledge, and then one can stay enthusiastic through that way. And so Hanuman depicted that for me because he was a true servant of Lord Ram, and he tried to perform an action. Even in that way, he didn't get the desired result, but it didn't stop him from persevering, and in the end, as we all know, they both were victorious in the end. And he led the way for many other monkeys to help in Lord Ram's service, even to the small monkey who couldn't even lift a pebble. So our service is so important. I think many devotees have mentioned that story of I think it's a mouse, the little mouse holding a pebble. Was it a squirrel or a mouse?
Squirrel.
Yeah, and it was like they were laughing at him, like, what are you going to do? And then, even that small service was important. So one should not feel like their service is not important. Every service is important for the Lord. And so Hanuman is led that way for that reason. I'm going to speed up. I've got so much more to say, but I'm going to speed up. So I think 46 minutes, and I don't want Radha Raman going mad at me. I think the next one is that we understand that we've trusted the process without following the process. We have spent some time in a Sangha. We then become a general and led the way. We then doing some regular service. This is my service. I'm doing this service. I'm happy to do this service. It's keeping me inspired. I'm inspiring others to do this service now. And it's now building a community. What happens is then you now need to build stamina, because this is the point where what we class as what Rupa Goswami classes in the Nectar of Devotion is that you then become, because service comes easy to you and you've done a service which makes you happy, the conditioned state of mind can then settle in. So you need to keep doing the inner work. So Prabhupada mentions in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is really nice, powerful, because we were reading this a few months ago actually in our Sangha. A devotee should always remain Atmavan, or situated in his spiritual position. He should not forget that his main concern is to make advancement in spiritual consciousness, or Krishna consciousness. He should not ignorantly identify himself with the body or mind. Atma means the body or the mind. But here, the word Atma especially means that one should be self-possessed. He should always remain in the pure consciousness that he's spirit, soul, and not the material body. This will make progress confidently in Krishna consciousness. So what that means is that for us, that we're making progress in Krishna consciousness, we have to also keep at the forefront who we're trying to please. The devotees will naturally become pleased and they will glorify you, just as like Radha Raman, he was saying some nice words about me because I'm here giving class. Naturally, the devotees will always glorify you, but we have to also keep in the forefront of mind who we're trying to please. And it seems easy to mention, but even for me, like sometimes I forget, who am I trying to please? Who am I doing this service for? Why is this happening? And the mood should always be the case, I'm trying to please Krishna. Krishna is the person I'm trying to please. And if you know that, naturally a tendency comes and then you want to then know more about Krishna. Who is this person I'm trying to please? Who is the individual? And this is the point where obstacles potentially may come. And this is why I say being equipoised is so important. And in Prabhupada, in the purport of the 12th chapter, I think it's verse 15, he mentions that actually a devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness, engaged in devotion. Such a material circle cannot move him. Generally, a materialistic person very happy when there is something for sense, whereas very unhappy when there is something for sense gratification for the body. So they're always engrossed in that process. And what does that mean for most of us? Like, how do we serve? I mentioned this previously in the previous slide, that through that sangha process, we understand that, okay, how do I then apply Krishna consciousness in my day-to-day life through my friends, my work, my school, everything that I do, how can I then think of Krishna? I asked my Guru Maharaj this question very early on when I was with him in Vrindavan. I said, I find it hard sometimes, like I do an activity and I'm like, I don't think I thought of Krishna like the whole time. I don't think I ever thought of Krishna once. And he goes, practically what should happen is that every activity you start, whether it be work, getting up in the morning, going to the gym, or going for a walk, think of Krishna first thing before you start, and think of Krishna afterwards. If you try that two small things together, naturally what happens is you will then start to think about Krishna more through any activity you do. It's a very practical way of thinking of Krishna. And thinking Krishna how? Favorably. Saying that I'm going to the gym because I want to look after my body so I can do service. I'm going to work so that I can maintain myself and then I can serve you better at home. Or I can chant Hare Krishna more. Or I can go to my family's place so then I can be an example of what a Krishna conscious devotee is happy. And that way we then think of Krishna in every activity we do, and then we can represent Krishna in the fullest way and represent being a devotee in the best way. So try and think of Krishna in any activity we do, Krishna before and Krishna after, at least, and then see how that works. I've got so much more to say, but I'm going to speed past. Actually, I'll mention this one thing which is really, really good, which I think is so important. Now, we've done a service and we like it, and we're leading the way for others to do service, but the most important thing is service within our community and how we serve each other. So, so important. And for me, when I hear about this from Chaitanya Charitamrita Prabhu, he speaks very nicely. He goes, we should serve in three ways to three different types of people. So we serve people that have been in the process longer than us and are senior than us, what we consider senior. We serve them with respect and love. So respect, mostly respect is the big thing. Respect is so important. And then we serve people that are, like for example, have come into Krishna consciousness around the same time as us. We're sharing activities with them. We're spending time with them on a social basis. We serve them with adoration, with love. Pure, just love and just friendship and love. And then those that have come into the process a bit later from us, how do we then serve them? We serve them by example. We serve them by the example of the above two. So we serve by example of what we're doing, the above two. So they see that by example that they're showing us. So I think those three things are so powerful because we can get mixed up in services and then lead the way for others, but it's also really important to serve the community around us so then we can build a holistic society that everyone then wants to serve each other and help each other as well. I think for me, the reason why I chose in this picture, does anyone know who this is in the picture? Prahlad Maharaj, yeah. And Prahlad Maharaj is someone who was had so much stamina and devotion. And he's also known as a Mahajan in the 6th canto as well. And I'll speak about this a little bit in a second as well. But he built so much stamina. He went through so many struggles in his practice of bhakti towards Lord Vishnu or Krishna, that he never unwavered in that process. He tried to help, all he did was try to help his friends. So many things, he had unwavering devotion. He shared so many nectar with his school friends. He was indifferent to material existence. He only wanted to talk about Krishna. Even when his father tried to kill him in the Bhagavatam, which sounds, in today's age, sounds like an absolute travesty, but he didn't see that. He's like, no, this person is not thinking the right way. They're still a devotee. I'm going to respect them. But he was focused. He was focused on spiritual path, and he didn't waver from that. And that's very, very important to note, that these personalities like Prahlad Maharaj, they teach us so many things. And we chant the Nrsimhadev prayers most programs now, so you can learn more about how he then fed his devotion towards Nrsimhadev. And just following on from that, one last thing I'll mention on this slide is that, for me, one of the favourite people was, has anyone read about Yamaraj in the Bhagavatam? A little bit, small thing. There's really nice lectures on Yamaraj, actually. And he's obviously known as a Mahajan as well as. Mahajan basically means someone who's practicing bhakti and led the way for others, and that he's been unfailing in all circumstances. So Yamaraj is one person, and there's a story where his servants, they come to him, and his servants only see him as the person that he's our God, he's the only one taking care of us. No one else is. And he goes on to explain that even I'm doing a service for Krishna. And that's the way one should be. That when you're serving in Krishna's service, people see that they see that, oh, this guy's unfaulted. But then when they come to you and approach you, an example you've set is that I'm actually doing service for Krishna. And that's the inspiration that you can do for leading people's way and then building stamina within yourself. I think it's so important. Yamaraj is for me, a very underrated personality within the Bhagavatam. I think whenever I read that bit in the Bhagavatam about him, I just feel so inspired, because he must have the most horrific service, but he does it with so much devotion. And he's thinking of Krishna, and he's always thinking of Lord Vishnu. He's like, Vishnu's my all. And so it's just important to mention, something to really read if you ever go through the Bhagavatam at any point. And then I think go through all the difficulties. There may be some difficulties in Krishna consciousness, but Krishna consciousness is supposed to be joyful. It should be joyfully performed. Everyone should be happy. And I remember Keshav Maharaj sat here and someone asked him the question, maybe from the ladies' side, and they're asking about services and who should we ask. And Maharaj mentioned that we should always approach devotees who are happy devotees. Devotees who are happy all the time, not just in devotional practice, but happy all the time. And that's the main thing. You should be happy in your practice. If you're not happy in your practice, then you have to look back at the previous few slides I mentioned. Are you trusting the process? Are you in a good sangha? Are you doing a service which is then inspiring you? Or are you doing a service which is there for you? And then you're leading the way for others. Are you helping others? And have you done that? You looked at your life and see how I can overcome certain obstacles? So relish those results. Relish them. Be satisfied in them. And Prabhupada is actually mentioned this really nice purport of the sixth chapter, verse 21. And he goes, the process of establishing oneself in real happiness is this process of Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness, we can gradually develop our real intelligence and naturally enjoy relishing spiritual happiness as we make spiritual progress. As we begin to relish spiritual happiness, we proportionally abandon material happiness. So if we're happy in the practice that we're doing, naturally we don't think about material things. We don't want to associate ourselves with anything outside of Krishna consciousness. And that's the natural tendency. And this is one of the main reasons I was speaking about today, because I was like, the 9 processes of devotional service are easy they're on paper look easy to understand, but how do we practically apply them? And I really want this session today to be something that we can apply in the Bhakti Yoga Center and use as a propellant to take us forward in our Krishna consciousness, because life is fast, life is quick, things go quick, and life is also short. I remember just yesterday I was in Padma Center with Radha Raman in sessions here on a Friday evening, and it was 36 now, so it's time gone really fast. So
I'm very full.
you too, Sangha. the next part of that verse 22, 622, Prabhupada is then mentioning that this is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. So everything he does through the senses, he feels happy. There's no limitation there. And for me, I'll be quick because I'm like coming to an hour. For me, Narada Muni is this person because he went through, actually, most of you have read the Bhagavad, they went through certain lives, few lives, and he went through his own process of up and downs and unwavering and wavering devotion, but he stayed fixed on his path. And then at the end, the Lord becomes so happy, he's like, he even offered him an eternal life, not doing what he's doing, just with him. But he actually said he desired one thing. I just want to serve Krishna. I want to be in your service and travel and do your service. And then that what you see in the picture here, what he's carrying in his hand, it was gifted to him personally by the Lord. He goes, you can take this and keep trying my glories everywhere you go. So that's the ultimate aim. When Prabhupada says, and this is something really important to mention because I heard this in a Sangha not long ago, and this is some of the things that we overlook in Krishna consciousness. When Prabhupada says, go back home, back to Godhead, what does home mean? Home means where we're comfortable. And actually for us as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is home. Preaching Krishna consciousness, practicing Krishna consciousness, helping other people, that is our home. That's going back to Godhead, but in the most perfect way. There is no such thing higher than that for any devotee who follows Rupa Goswami. And so leading on from that, you can see that Narada Muni achieved that stage where he's able to then glorify the Lord constantly everywhere he went. And he then had one thing missing, which a lot of devotees miss. What is that? What is missing? I've got the benediction, I'm able to chant the glories of the Lord, I'm able to go everywhere. But one thing is missing. What
association?
No, it's not association. He got association, but not the right association. I guess you're right, in one sense it is the right association. He was missing one thing. He's like, this is niggling me so much. And he heard, in his travels, he went to so many different planets. He heard about Krishna from so many different people, different glories. He then becomes so inspired. But he's like heard from one devotee that, I've heard Krishna goes to this place called Vrindavan. Where's Vrindavan? And he's like, this is his original form, where he enjoys every day. And he went there. And he goes, what does he do there? He goes, he just chants Krishna. They just chant and they spend time and they glorify each other and they serve each other. It's so amazing. It's the purest form of that. And they don't see each other as God. They always see each other as like these perfect forms of themselves, and they're serving each other. And then he goes to Vrindavan and he meets this gopi there. She goes, I want to meet this Krishna in Vrindavan. How can I meet him? And she goes, you have to bathe in this place called Kusum Sarovar. Who's been to Kusum Sarovar? Most people probably have. And this is where Radharani went to collect flowers for Krishna. And you have to bathe there and you become a gopi. And he goes, okay, I'll bathe there. He wasn't so sure. And he turned out to be this beautiful gopi. And he saw Krishna. And when he saw these pastimes of Krishna and become unwavered by these, he become like almost like, I've never seen this. It's undescribable Krishna in the most amazing way. He couldn't really put it into words. And he'd taken all this and he's gone back to the gopi. He's like, okay, now I'm ready to go back as my original self. Like, I want to go back to my original self. Because he wasn't allowed to enter one pastime. He's like, I've been denied, not everything. I've not seen Krishna everywhere. I'm like denied it. And she goes, bathe in this kund, and this is known as Narada Kund. Who's ever been to Narada Kund? I've not been to Narada Kund. Ever been to Narada Kund? So he goes there. Actually, there's a book called, which I got gifted by Vrindavani Prabhu actually, on my birthday about so many years ago. It's called a Narada Bhakti Sutra, where he wrote this book called Narada Bhakti Sutra. The sutras, basically, these sutras are like texts of devotion to Krishna that he felt. And through writing that book, the Lord becomes so pleased that he gave him the opportunity to become somebody in a current pastime now. And do you know who that was? So he was Shivas Pandit, part of Pandit Tattva. And he then got given the opportunity to then chant Hare Krishna, which is the most auspicious mantra for most of us, and that's the only way of deliverance for most of us in this society. And it's the opportunity for share Krishna consciousness. And I also want to give a opportunity to say that Prabhupada says in a lecture, in a Rath Yatra lecture, which I was listening to the other day just because of Bright Rath Yatra yesterday, he was saying that when he first established Krishna international society Krishna consciousness, he established 24 major festivals throughout the year. That's like Radhashtami, Janmashtami, you've got Nityananda Chaudasi, Gurpunim, so many different festivals. This is not even including every Ekadashi. And now, you know, if you look at the Mana calendar, they practice everything now. You know, they're even offering so many other festivals that we can go to. So the opportunities are endless to share Krishna consciousness. And that is the end result of everything we do, is to share Krishna consciousness in its pure highest form. And share the holy name with everybody. And his holy name is given the importance. For those of you who were here last week in the Kirtan session, Akash Prabhu was saying the verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva Nasteva Katiranyata. And the reason why this is depicted so nicely is that Mahaprabhu is saying that in this age where there's so many problems, there's so many issues, the only way we can help people, help ourselves, is chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And I was listening to one devotee speak at the Mana, I believe it might be Yodhabara Prabhu. Might be Yodhabara Prabhu, he was speaking not long ago actually. Yodhabara Prabhu is also a Prabhupada disciple. He did a lot of videoing for Prabhupada. You know, a lot of the videos you see of Prabhupada were done by him and his wife. And he was saying that you can tell by how a devotee is advanced in his Krishna consciousness by the taste they have for chanting, how much they want to chant. And this is the example of that. If we want to chant Hare Krishna constantly and we're always engaged in chanting Hare Krishna, you can really see the tangible result. More in ourselves and then in others also. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the most important. And I'll probably end off here and say that thank you for listening to me. I always probably go a lot over more than I should, but I think my mentality is always like I want to cover as much base as possible, give everyone an opportunity to speak, listen from certain angles. And I don't like to speak more from personal. I try to share some personal things, but mostly I'm trying to share what Prabhupada has mentioned and what Krishna is saying. So we understand that the direction we're going in is the right direction. It's given by the authority. Krishna is saying it, Prabhupada is saying it, and then we're going in the right direction. So, yeah, just to summarize, we spoke about what does it mean to be established in a relationship with Krishna, the troubles we may come through. We build good association around us that inspire us to serve, act on that conscious way and intention and with intelligence, embody the teachings and lead the way for others. Be happy that you're able to proceed with all the above. You know, all the above I mentioned, you're happy to proceed, you've got all these things happening. Be present and be happy with that. Relish in that moment and then understand that that is the process of Krishna consciousness. It should make you happy. You should feel happy in that process. If you don't feel happy, one of the processes is not working. And then the last thing is that once that's all fine, you can then share in the best way possible, mostly through the holy name and through Prabhupada's teachings. So I want to firstly say thank you for everyone for listening to me. I appreciate everyone taking the time for me to talk for so long. And yeah, Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Shinitai Gauranga ki
Jai.
His Grace Golokananda Prabhu ki
Jai.
We'll give a round of applause to Golokananda Prabhu.
Haribo!